Meghan Markle has been accused of faking interviews made under her lucrative podcast deal. This is according to Pod News. The Duchess of Sussex's staff conducted interviews with guests for her podcast, Archetypes, and her voice was later dubbed in. The allegation comes just days after Spotify and Archwell Audio, the podcast company owned by Prince Harry and Markle, ended their $20 million partnership.
Markle was reportedly unable to fulfill the content benchmarks set by the pricey 2020 Spotify deal, only producing 12 episodes. Both parties say the parting was mutual, but Bill Simmons, a senior Spotify podcast executive, unleashed on the royal couple. Here he is speaking on his own show this past Friday. Let's listen.
I wish I had been involved in the Meghan and Harry leave Spotify negotiation. The Grifters. That's the podcast we should have launched with them. I got to get drunk one night and tell the story of the Zoom I had with Harry to try to help him with a podcast idea.
Do it.
It's one of my best stories.
Dude, there hasn't been a Drunk Simmons podcast. Let's both get drunk and then it'll just be drunk.
Save that idea.
I'm planning to exit Rising, and I'm going to work from home, and they'll just dub in my voice. You can have an interaction with a cardboard cutout of Robby, and then we'll later sub me in.
Yeah, look, so first thing I would like to say as a podcaster and a poster, people really undercount the dedication, time, talent, and skill that it takes to do a podcast. And I'm only half joking. A lot of people think, oh, it's the cool thing to have a podcast. Everybody has a podcast. Let's just buy a Yeti microphone and everyone's going to want to hear what I have to say. But Obama had a podcast with Bruce Springsteen, one of the most popular musicians in the history of America and one of the most popular presidents in the history of America. And it did not do well, and almost nobody wanted to listen to it.
Because boomers are over. It's over for you, boomers.
Well, I think, people don't understand, that there's this parasocial relationship that it develops that comes from being authentic and open. And Obama, because of the nature of who he is, can't be authentic and open. It had to be this corporate product. And everyone who's had these kind of canned corporate, what would be a good idea to get Meghan Markle on a podcast? Those types of ideas that aren't organic often fail. And I'm not surprised that she struggled to even come up with what she wanted to say, because it's tough to be put in that position. She can't be potentially as honest as a lay person would be in that format, and it's not going to go well. Moreover, this schedule and the rigor of it is not nothing. The editing is time consuming. It's more costly than people think it's going to be. And people got to stop offering folks podcast deals. Everyone can't do it.
Just being famous doesn't,
it's not enough.
If you can't ask insightful questions or carry an interesting conversation, it's more difficult than people think. I can remember being a real little kid and talking to my dad, and we were watching the local news in Detroit, whatever, the local Fox affiliate or NBC affiliate, whatever it was. And I asked my dad, I'm like, is that a high-paying job to be the morning host of the local news show? Mm-hmm. And my dad was like, it's probably a pretty good paying job, yeah. I said, it doesn't seem hard at all. It doesn't seem like they're doing anything. They're just reading off a screen, and they're just, asking questions. I bet anybody could do that. And my dad was like, no, it's probably a lot harder than you think, Robby.
You said, challenge accepted.
Years later, my dad was right. It is hard. Yeah. It is very hard, and not everyone can do it. And they're Spotify and other companies naively thinking that just any famous name paired together, whatever, will instantly be something people want to listen to. It doesn't work because people want authenticity. Mm-hmm. And you can't fake authenticity. Mm-hmm. Well, it wouldn't be authentic if you did. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's funny how badly these ventures have gone, where the company was like, what could go wrong? We have here's one of the most famous people on the planet.
Yeah. So the other part of this, and why it's getting so much attention, is that Meghan Markle and Prince Harry are particularly reviled, especially in the United Kingdom, because they are perceived as having, made the crown look bad, given up an opportunity to have all the wealth and privilege of being in the royal family because they didn't want the exposure, wanted to have a private life. I think Americans are more sympathetic to that idea. We're not as royal focused. We don't like a monarchy. We appreciate independence and all those kinds of things. But there are, even in the United States, people who are very critical of them. One aspect of the critique is that some people didn't like Meghan Markle because she is Black, and they don't, they think it's a break with tradition and all those kinds of things. So this is getting, I think, a heightened degree of attention for those reasons, and because they had sometimes come off as out of touch and privileged as a consequence of complaining about being born into a circumstance that or marrying into a circumstance that many people, at least abstractly, think they would very much enjoy. But, my enjoyment of this is purely, my schadenfreude here is purely as a podcaster and as a poster who I think has her own creative outputs oftentimes undercounted and diminished. So I say this to all of you out there. Spotify might have the monetary backing. It might be a powerhouse in many respects. It has the money to buy Joe Rogan, but it can't, at the end of the day, fabricate a quality piece of content out of thin air. Shout out to all of the independent podcasters that are still making it work.
Well, and shout out to all the people behind the scenes, including on our own show. I think that was part of the subtext here is frustration.
Right.
That she wasn't even showing up.
All you do is show up.
She wasn't doing the bare minimum. They were doing everything. And obviously these shows, there's so much, going on behind the scenes. There's so much that we rely on to help come up with topics and what we're talking about and assembling the elements, the videos, and play all that stuff. Yeah. There's so much going on. And so to disrespect the staff at that level, I guess that's the royal treatment.
Yeah, and look, maybe something will come out and there's more to the story, and maybe she was dealing with an illness or a personal issue, or maybe there were creative disputes about the direction of the show that were difficult to resolve. Who knows? But look, Pete Buttigieg had a podcast. I remember there was this point, like during the summer of 2020, where all the old primary candidates basically got a podcast. I think one of Julian Castro, I guess, had a podcast. Hillary Clinton had a podcast where what's his name, who sings "Ordinary People" and is married to Chrissy Teigen.
John Legend.
John Legend showed up a lot for some reason. No. And I tried to listen to all of these. I was in the process of starting my own podcast and was curious what was out there, what people were doing, what the field looked like. It was dreck.
Yeah.
They're unwilling to say anything that they wouldn't say on an MSNBC broadcast. So just let them be interviewed for 7 minutes and go about your day. I don't care what kind of coffee you drink, Bruce Springsteen. I want to hear gritty, authentic stories about what it was like backstage in, the early part of your career. I want to know what it was like to record "We Are the World" with Michael Jackson giving everybody the side eye because they weren't good vocalists.
Boomers are over. We don't care about Bruce Springsteen anymore. It's going to be millennial culture.
Robbie. People care
for the
about
next 30 years, and we're just doing millennial culture. Gen Z can wait their turn.
Oh boy, you sound like a boomer. I think they've kind of skipped over us.
Yeah, we're the boomers now.
We're the boomers now.
Look, I'm doing that meme. Look at me. We are the boomers now.
All right, on that note, we'll have more Rising for you right after this.